The sky was gray that morning. Not the kind of gray that promises rain. The kind that feels heavy, like the clouds themselves were grieving. I remember standing under that big oak tree outside the church, holding my black umbrella, watching people come and go. Everyone's faces looked blurred through my tears. Friends, neighbors, old co-workers of my husband, and people I barely recognized. It was his funeral. My husband, Michael Green, was gone. We had been married for 25 years. And just like that, a phone call, a car crash, a closed casket. The end of a life I thought I understood completely. Inside the church, the air smelled of lilies and wet wood. The choir sang softly, and the pastor's voice trembled a little when he spoke Michael's name. I sat in the front row, holding my daughter's hand. Emily was only 23. Her face pale and eyes swollen from crying. She kept whispering, "Mom, it's going to be okay." Like she was trying to convince herself more than me. But it wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. I couldn't even look at the coffin without my chest tightening. As the service went on, I tried to listen, but my mind kept drifting. Memories of Michael laughing in our kitchen. His old brown jacket hanging behind the door. The sound of his car pulling into the driveway every evening. Everything felt like a movie I had just been pushed out of. Then, just as the final prayer began, I felt a vibration inside my clutch purse. A soft buzz. Once. Twice. First I ignored it. But then something inside me told me to look. I pulled out my phone slowly, shielding the screen from Emily. There was a new message. No contact name. Just an unknown number. And when I opened it, I stopped breathing. I am still alive. Trust no one. The phone almost slipped from my hand. My heart began to race so fast I thought everyone could hear it. I stared at the screen, frozen, as the words glowed back at me. It couldn't be real. Couldn't be from him. Before we begin, if you enjoy stories that touch the heart and remind us of life's quiet miracles, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. It truly helps our little storytelling family grow. But there it was, the same number that had belonged to Michael. The same number I had texted the night before his accident, begging him to come home early. I blinked hard, thinking maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. Maybe it was some cruel prank, or maybe someone hacked his phone. But deep inside, under the shock and confusion, a strange feeling began to grow. Not fear. Not anger. Something else. Hope. Because even though I had seen the casket, even though everyone said it was him in that car, a part of me had refused to believe it. The pastor's voice faded in the background. People stood up for the final hymn, but I couldn't move. My hands trembled as I read the message again and again, the letters almost blurring into the screen. Emily noticed something was wrong. "Mom," she whispered. "Are you okay?" I forced a shaky smile. "Yes, sweetheart," I said softly. "I'm fine." But I wasn't. My world had just split in half. As people started leaving the church, I slipped the phone back into my purse and kept my face still. Inside, my thoughts were racing. Who sent that message? If Michael was alive, where was he? And why did he tell me not to trust anyone? Outside, the rain began to fall, slow at first, then heavier. Umbrellas opened. Cars started pulling away. Emily went to talk to one of her college friends, and for a moment I stood alone by the steps of the church. That's when I noticed a man across the street, tall, wearing a dark coat and a hat pulled low over his face. He was standing under a lamppost, looking directly at me. When our eyes met, he turned and walked away. I felt a chill run down my spine. Something about the way he moved. Something familiar. I didn't know it then, but that moment was the beginning of everything that came next. The lies, the fear, and the truth I never imagined I'd uncover. Because that message, that one line, was only the beginning of a story that would tear my life apart. The days after the funeral felt like a long gray fog. People came by the house with casseroles and flowers. They said all the right things. "He was a good man. He'll be missed. You're so strong." But every word slid past me like rain on glass. The truth was, I didn't feel strong. I felt empty, like someone had pressed pause on my life. Our home sat on the edge of Maple Creek, a quiet town where everyone knew everyone. The kind of place where folks waved at passing cars and left pies on your porch when you were sick. Michael and I had lived there for nearly 2 decades. He was a contractor, built fences, porches, small barns. People trusted him. They'd say, if Michael Green built it, it'll outlast the house. And he was a good man. Or at least, that's what I'd always believed. In the evenings, he'd come home smelling of sawdust and pine, humming to himself while washing up for dinner. We had our routines: chicken on Wednesdays, movie nights on Fridays, a drive out by the lake every Sunday after church. Simple things. Ordinary things. Things you take for granted until they're gone. But that week after his funeral, strange details began to creep in. The first was his truck. The police said it had gone off the highway near the river bend. Too fast. Too sharp of a turn. It had rolled down into the ravine, burst into flames. They told me the body was badly burned, but there were identifiable remains. They said it was him. I'd asked, "Are you sure?" And they said yes, the wallet, the ring, the dental record. But something never sat right with me. Michael was careful. He never sped, especially not on that road. He used to say, "That curve will catch you if you're not paying attention." So why would he die there? And on a night he wasn't even supposed to be driving that route? He told me that morning he was headed to Pine Valley to meet a supplier, about 40 miles the other direction. But the crash happened near Clearwater Bridge, miles off that route. When I'd asked the officer, he said, "Ma'am, maybe he changed his plans. We don't know." That answer didn't help. It just made my heart feel heavier. The next odd thing was his phone. After the funeral, the police returned some of Michael's belongings, his watch, his keys, and a few personal items found in his truck, but not his phone. When I asked, they told me it was too damaged. Yet somehow, someone had just texted me from his number. That thought kept me up for nights. I'd lie awake in our quiet bedroom, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind tapping against the windows. Sometimes I'd hear creaks in the hallway, small, normal sounds, but they made me sit up straight, heart pounding. I missed his voice, the sound of his laugh echoing from the kitchen, the warmth of him next to me in bed. I still caught myself talking to him sometimes, out loud. "Michael, where did you go? What happened to you?" Emily noticed how distracted I'd become. She'd drive over every morning before work, bringing coffee and muffins, trying to cheer me up. One morning she said gently, "Mom, maybe you should stay with Aunt Helen for a while, just to get out of the house." I smiled faintly. "I'm okay here, sweetheart." But she didn't look convinced. And then as she reached for her cup, she added, "You know, Dad's phone. Maybe it was just some mix-up. Maybe someone got his old number." I wanted to believe that. I really did. But when I opened my messages again that night, the text was still there, glowing on the screen like a warning I couldn't escape. "I am still alive. Trust no one." I kept reading it over and over, my mind spinning. Trust no one. What did that mean? Did he mean the police? Someone close to us? Or me? The more I thought about it, the more I realized Michael had been different those last few months. He'd been distracted, quiet at dinner. Sometimes he'd leave the house after dark, saying he had to check on a client. When I asked who, he'd just smile faintly and say, "Just some folks who need help fixing up their place. Don't worry about it, honey." But he wouldn't look me in the eye when he said it. There were also the calls. Late at night, he'd step outside to answer them, lowering his voice. Once I caught a few words through the kitchen window, something like, "No, not yet. It's too risky." When I'd asked him about it later, he laughed it off. "You and that imagination of yours," he said, kissing my forehead. And maybe that's what I'd been, imaginative. A woman who saw ghosts in her own shadows. But now that message, it felt like the ghosts were real. 2 days after the funeral, I went through his desk, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. I needed to find something, anything that explained what was happening. Bills, old receipts, warranty papers. And then tucked behind a drawer, I found a small brown envelope with my name written on it. Just for Anna. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. It was Michael standing beside a woman I'd never seen before, younger than me with short blonde hair and a bright smile. They were by a lake holding hands, and on the back of the photo, written in Michael's handwriting, were the words, "Keep her safe." My throat went dry. Who was she? And what did he mean by keep her safe? I sat there staring at the photo for what felt like hours, my pulse thudding in my ears. That night I barely slept. Every noise made me jump. And once around midnight I thought I saw the shadow of someone outside near the porch. A tall figure moving between the trees. When I switched on the light, there was no one there. Just the empty yard and the soft hum of crickets. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. The next morning, I decided to go to the police station. Not to show them the message, not yet, but to ask about the investigation again. Officer Daniels, the same man who had handled Michael's accident, greeted me politely. He looked tired. Maybe he'd heard too many stories like mine. "Mrs. Green," he said kindly, "you really should try to rest. I know it's hard." "I just need to know," I said softly. "Did anyone else see the crash? Any witnesses?" He hesitated, flipping through his notes. "Just a trucker passing by after midnight. He reported the fire. Said the car was already burning when he got there. No one saw Michael driving?" He shook his head. "No, ma'am." Something about the way he avoided my eyes made my stomach twist. As I walked out, I noticed the black SUV parked across the street. Engine running. Windows tinted. When I looked directly at it, the driver started the car and pulled away. That same chill crawled up my spine again. The same one I'd felt at the funeral. Maybe it was all in my head. Or maybe someone didn't want me asking questions. That night, as I sat by the window holding the photo, my phone buzzed again. My hand shook as I picked it up. Another message. Same number. "Don't talk to the police. Watch the man in the gray hat." I felt the blood drain from my face. Because earlier that day at the station, Officer Daniels was wearing a gray hat. The night I got that second message, I didn't sleep at all. I just sat by the window watching the moonlight spill across the yard, my phone clutched in both hands. Don't talk to the police. Watch the man in the gray hat. Officer Daniels. Why him? He'd always seemed kind, patient, gentle with his words. But the message made me see him in a new, colder light. The next morning when Emily came by, she noticed my eyes were red. "Mom, you didn't sleep again, did you?" she asked, touching my shoulder. I tried to smile. Just had trouble shutting my mind off. "Maybe you should stop thinking about it for a while," she said. "Dad wouldn't want you to get lost in all this." Her voice trembled when she said Dad, and I knew she was hurting too. I wanted to tell her everything, the messages, the photo, the strange man at the funeral, but something in me stopped. If Michael's message had said trust no one, did that include our daughter? Even thinking it made my heart ache. Still, something told me I had to be careful. After Emily left, I pulled out my old photo albums, flipping through the pictures of Michael and me through the years, birthdays, fishing trips, backyard barbecues. He looked the same in every photo. Confident, steady, the kind of man who made everyone else feel safe. But then near the back of one album I found something odd. A folded piece of paper tucked behind a photo of us at the lake. It was a receipt from a motel 2 towns over, dated 2 weeks before his accident. 1 room, paid in cash, and signed with a name I didn't recognize. James Carter. My first thought was disbelief. Maybe it wasn't his. Maybe it was just something he'd picked up by mistake. But the handwriting on the signature, that slanted familiar curve, was his. My heart started pounding. Why would Michael use another name? And what was he doing in that motel? That afternoon I decided to drive there. The place was called Silver Pines Inn, a quiet roadside motel off Highway 62. The sign was faded, and a few of the windows were boarded up. Inside, the air smelled of old coffee and lemon cleaner. A woman behind the desk looked up from her crossword puzzle. "Afternoon," she said. "Can I help you?" I hesitated. "I think my husband stayed here a few weeks ago. I was just trying to confirm." She looked at me over her glasses. "What was the name?" I swallowed hard. "James Carter." Her brow furrowed. "Room 12. Stayed 3 nights. Quiet guy." She flipped through a worn notebook. "Left in a hurry though. Didn't even check out." Did he come alone?" The woman shrugged. "Far as I know. Though." She leaned closer. "He had a visitor one night. Blonde lady, short hair. Drove a blue sedan." My stomach dropped. "The woman from the photo. Did you get a plate number?" I asked, my voice shaking. She frowned. "Sorry, ma'am. I don't keep track of that stuff." I forced a polite smile and thanked her, then walked back to my car, my knees weak. Michael. The motel. The woman. It was all connected somehow. As I started the engine, I noticed a car parked across the street, black tinted windows. The same kind I'd seen outside the police station. When I pulled out, it followed. I tried to tell myself it was coincidence, that I was imagining things. But when I turned right toward Maple Creek, the car turned right too. And when I slowed down, it slowed too. My heart began to race. I took the next left, a narrow side road that led toward the old mill. The car followed. I gripped the wheel, breathing fast, until finally I turned sharply into a gas station parking lot. The car drove past slowly, then disappeared around the corner. For a long moment I sat there, shaking. Then I whispered to myself, "Michael, what have you gotten me into?" Tom looked around again, his jaw tight. "I don't know. But he wanted me to tell you, if anything happened, to trust no one from the sheriff's office. Especially Daniels." I felt my knees weaken. "Why?" Tom's voice dropped. "Because Daniels is part of it. He's been on their payroll for years." My heart pounded in my ears. Everything suddenly made sense. The missing phone, the vague answers, the strange looks. "Tom, I got a message from Michael," I whispered. "From his number. He told me not to trust anyone." Tom looked startled. "Then he's still out there. He's watching. Maybe trying to keep you safe." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small flash drive. "Michael asked me to hold this. He said you'd know what to do if it came to this." Before I could take it, we heard the sound of an engine. A black SUV pulled up at the far end of the road. Tom's face went pale. "Go, Anna. Now. What about you?" He shook his head. "I'll hold them off. Just go." I turned and ran toward my car, the gravel crunching under my shoes. Behind me I heard shouting, then a gunshot. I froze for a second, heart hammering, but then forced myself to keep running. I jumped into my car, started it, and sped off down the road. In the rearview mirror, the pier grew smaller and I couldn't see Tom anymore. Tears blurred my vision. I didn't know where to go, what to do, or who to call. All I knew was that Michael was alive, and that someone was willing to kill to keep that secret. That night I sat at my kitchen table, the flash drive trembling in my hand. I didn't dare plug it in yet. Instead, I turned off every light in the house, locked every door, and sat by the window waiting. Around midnight, a car slowed outside. Headlights swept across my walls, then stopped. I held my breath, peeking through the curtain. It was the black SUV. For a long moment it just sat there. Then it drove away. But before it disappeared, I caught a glimpse of the driver's face, the faint glow from the dashboard lights. It was Officer Daniels. That night I barely moved from the window. The sound of that SUV outside, the slow, deliberate way it stopped, the glint of the driver's eyes, stayed with me long after it left. I knew it wasn't just in my head anymore. Someone was watching me. When morning came, the world outside looked normal again. Sunlight on the trees, kids waiting for the school bus, the mail truck humming down the street. But inside I was shaking. I decided to plug in the flash drive. My hands trembled as I slid it into my old laptop. For a few seconds nothing happened. Then a single folder popped up. Bridge project. Inside were files, spreadsheets, scanned invoices, official letters with county seals. At first, they looked like construction reports, the kind Michael used to work on. But then I saw the numbers. Payments that didn't make sense. Huge sums of money listed under fake companies, all signed off by the same two names, Sheriff Daniels and Councilman Reed. My heart pounded harder with every click. Michael had found something big. Corruption buried in local contracts. And then, at the bottom of the folder, I saw a video file, labeled simply, "If anything happens." Clicked it. The screen flickered and then, Michael's face appeared. He was sitting in our garage wearing his old work jacket. His hair was messy, eyes tired, voice low but steady. "Anna," he said quietly, "if you're watching this, then something's gone wrong. I found proof the sheriff's office has been laundering money through fake construction bids. I tried to report it, but they're watching me now. I can't go to the police. Daniels is one of them." He took a shaky breath. "I don't want you or Emily involved. I'll make them think I'm dead. It's the only way to keep you safe. Trust no one until you hear from me again. I love you." The video ended abruptly. I sat there staring at the dark screen, my whole body trembling. Alive. He was alive. He'd faked his death for us. But then another thought hit me like a cold wave. Tom. The shot at the pier. Had they found him because of me? I pressed my hand to my mouth, trying not to cry. I wanted to call someone, to scream, to drive out and find Michael. But I couldn't. I didn't even know where to start. Instead, I copied the files to a small memory card and hid it inside a photo frame in the living room. That evening, Emily came by again. She looked worried when she saw me, pale, hollow-eyed like a ghost. "Mom, you're scaring me," she said softly. "You haven't answered my calls all day." "I'm fine," I whispered. "Just tired." She frowned. "Are you sure? You've been acting so strange lately. You don't trust anyone, you don't eat, you don't sleep." Her voice broke. "I'm worried about you." I reached for her hand, my heart aching. "Emily, I just need you to believe me when I say, everything I'm doing is to protect us." She blinked back, tears. "Protect us from what?" Before I could answer, headlights swept across the window. We both turned toward the sound. A car pulling into the driveway. "Are you expecting someone?" Emily asked. I shook my head. A knock echoed through the house. Firm. Slow. When I looked through the peephole, my stomach dropped. "Officer Daniels." "Mrs. Green." His voice was calm, polite, too calm. "Mind if I come in for a moment?" Emily started to rise, but I stopped her. "It's okay," I whispered, though my pulse was racing. I opened the door just enough to see his face. He smiled faintly, tilting his hat. "Just following up on the case. You weren't answering our calls." I forced a shaky breath. "I've been resting." He nodded. "That's good. It's important to take care of yourself after a loss." His eyes scanned the room behind me, lingering on the hallway. Something about the way he looked around made my skin crawl. "Actually," he continued, "I wanted to let you know the investigation is closing soon. But if you found anything that seems off, you should tell me." I hesitated. Every instinct screamed, "Don't trust him." He smiled again, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Well, if anything does come up, you know where to find me." He tipped his hat and turned to leave. When his car finally drove away, I locked the door, every muscle shaking. Emily looked at me, confused. "Mom, what was that about?" I met her eyes, my voice trembling. "Emily, there's something I need to tell you." That night, I told her everything about the messages, the motel, the flash drive, and the video. At first, she thought I'd lost my mind. "Mom, that's impossible," she whispered. "Dad's gone. We buried him." I showed her the video. When Michael's face appeared, she gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. For a long time after it ended, she just sat there silent. Then she said quietly, "So he left us. On purpose." Her voice cracked. "He let us think he was dead." Tears filled my eyes. He did it to protect us, Emily. But she shook her head, standing up. He could have told us. He didn't have to disappear. I tried to reach for her, but she stepped back. Mom, I can't. I just need some air. She grabbed her coat and walked out before I could stop her. When the door closed, the house fell into heavy silence. Only the ticking of the old clock filled the air. I sank into the couch, my heart breaking all over again. Michael was alive, but I'd lost Emily too. An hour later, my phone buzzed. Another message. Don't stay home tonight. They know you have the drive. I froze. I looked out the window. The street was empty, quiet. But deep down I knew it was true. Someone had been in this house. Someone had been watching. I grabbed my coat and keys, hid the memory card in my shoe, and drove off toward the old cabin by the lake, the one Michael and I used to visit years ago. It was small, isolated, and quiet. I hadn't been there since before Emily left for college, but it felt like the only safe place left. When I arrived, the cabin smelled of dust and pine. The floor creaked under my feet, and spiderwebs hung in the corners. Still, it was shelter. I sat by the fireplace with a blanket around my shoulders, staring into the flickering light. For the first time in days, I let the tears come freely. Michael, I whispered. If you can hear me, please come back. The wind outside howled, rattling the windows. I must have dozed off because when I woke up, it was dark again. My phone buzzed beside me. Another message. Look outside. My chest tightened. Slowly, I turned toward the window. And there, in the faint glow of moonlight, stood a figure. Tall. Still. Watching me from the trees. I grabbed the flashlight from the table and shone it toward the glass. For a second, the light caught his face. And my heart stopped. It was Michael. Alive. I ran to the door, threw it open, and stepped into the cold night. He stood a few feet away, his face pale, eyes filled with both love and fear. Anna, he whispered. I couldn't move. I wanted to run into his arms, but something in his expression froze me. They're close, he said quickly. You have to leave this place. Tears blurred my vision. Michael, I thought you were. I know, he said, his voice breaking. I'm sorry. I had no choice. They were watching. I had to make them believe I was dead. Tom, they shot him, I said, choking on the words. He closed his eyes. I know. He tried to help me. I couldn't save him. The sound of a car engine echoed in the distance. Michael turned sharply toward the road. They found us, he said. Anna, listen to me. The evidence, you have to get it to the press. Don't trust the police. Don't trust anyone from town. What about you? He stepped closer, brushing a tear from my cheek. I'll find you when it's safe. But if I don't? He stopped, swallowing hard. Promise me you'll protect Emily. Michael, please don't go again, I whispered. But before he could answer, headlights appeared through the trees. He stepped back, disappearing into the darkness. Go, Anna, he shouted. I turned and ran to my car, heart hammering, tears streaming down my face. When I looked back one last time, he was gone. Just like before. That night was the moment everything changed. I had seen him, truly seen him. Alive, terrified, and still protecting us. But now the danger was real, and it was coming fast. The night I saw Michael at the cabin changed everything. I didn't sleep at all after that. Every creak outside, every whisper of wind against the windows felt like a threat. When dawn finally broke, the forest around the cabin looked peaceful again. Calm and harmless, as if nothing had happened. But my chest still throbbed with fear. I had to finish what Michael started. I took the memory card, hid it inside my coat lining, and drove toward the next town over. A place where no one knew me. There, in a small cafe, I used the public Wi-Fi to upload everything. The documents, the video, the proof of corruption, to an anonymous journalist Michael had mentioned once. If something ever happens to me, contact him. I found the name in his old messages. Ethan Cole, investigative reporter, The State Ledger. I typed the email with shaking hands. My husband uncovered corruption involving Sheriff Daniels and Councilman Reed. He faked his death to protect us. I have proof. Please help. I attached the files, hit send, and sat there staring at the screen until the message confirmed. Sent successfully. For the first time, I felt like I'd done something right. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. I drove back to town by evening. The sky was dark and heavy with rain. As I turned onto Maple Street, flashing red and blue lights filled the horizon. Sheriff's cars, at least 3 of them, surrounded my house. My heart froze. I parked a few blocks away and walked the rest of the way on foot, the rain soaking through my coat. As I got closer, I could hear them talking. "Search every room," Daniels barked. "She's hiding something." From the shadows of a neighbor's porch, I watched them tear through my home. Bookshelves overturned. Drawers emptied. My entire life ripped apart. Then I saw Emily, standing on the porch with an officer beside her, crying. I wanted to run to her, but I couldn't, not yet. Then Daniels came out, holding the photo frame where I'd hidden the first memory card. He smashed it open, found the empty slot, and cursed under his breath. "She moved it," he growled. I knew then, if I went home, I'd never walk out again. I turned and ran back toward my car, heart pounding. Hours later, I sat in another small motel off Highway 9, soaked and shaking. The TV was on low, breaking news flashing across the screen. Breaking story. Sheriff Daniels and Councilman Reed under federal investigation for fraud and cover-up. I froze. They had received the files. It worked. The reporter's face appeared next. Anonymous sources provided video evidence connecting the sheriff's office to millions in missing county funds. Officials have not commented. Tears filled my eyes. I let out a broken laugh that turned into a sob. Michael had done it. We had done it. Then my phone buzzed. An unknown number. For a second I hesitated, but something told me to answer. "Anna," a man's voice said softly. My breath caught. "Michael." "It's me." I pressed the phone to my ear, afraid to breathe. "I saw the news," he said. "You did it. They're finished." "Where are you?" I whispered. "I can't say. Not yet. I have to disappear for a while. But it's over. You and Emily are safe now." My tears came faster. "Please, just come home." There was a long silence on the line. Then he said quietly, "I can't. Too many people know my face now. If I come back, they'll use me to hurt you again." "Michael, I'll always be with you," he whispered. "Even if you can't see me." And then the line went dead. The next morning, I drove to the edge of town. Federal agents had cordoned off the sheriff's office. Reporters crowded the sidewalks. Everything was unraveling. The town's lies, the secrets, the corruption. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like standing on the ashes of something I'd once called home. When I finally saw Emily again, it was in front of the courthouse. She was with her friend, holding a coffee cup, her eyes red from crying. When she saw me, she froze. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she walked toward me. "Mom," she whispered. I nodded, tears welling up again. "He did it, Emily. Your father. He made sure we'd be safe." She swallowed hard. "Did you talk to him?" I hesitated. "For a moment. But he can't come back." Her lip trembled. "So he's gone again." I nodded. "Yes. But this time it's different. This time he left us with peace." Emily took my hand, really took it, for the first time in months. And we stood there, watching the old sheriff's office fade into flashing lights and chaos. Weeks passed. The town slowly began to heal. Daniels and Reed were arrested. News of the scandal spread across the state. People started looking at me differently. Not with pity, but with quiet respect. I kept to myself mostly, fixing up the house, tending the garden Michael once built. Sometimes when the wind blew through the trees, I could almost hear his voice again, calm, steady, loving. "Trust no one, Anna, except your heart." Emily visited often. We'd sit on the porch sipping coffee, watching the sun dip behind the hills. She still missed him. We both did. But there was a kind of peace now, soft and steady, like the slow return of morning light after a long night. One afternoon months later, I received a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single photo, a picture of a cabin by a lake. And on the back, in Michael's handwriting, "The world's quiet here. I'm safe. So are you? M." I pressed the photo to my heart and closed my eyes. For the first time in a long time, I smiled through the tears. Because even though I couldn't see him, I knew he was out there, alive, watching, loving us from afar. And in that quiet moment, under the golden evening sky, I whispered, "Goodbye, my love. You can rest now. We're safe."